My name is Sarah Stevenson, and I'm going to be teaching Mariah some audition tips. I'm going to try to use expository instruction and make it easy for Mariah to grasp all the concepts and make connections rather than just lecturing to her in direct instruction. We're going to be one-on-one for the most part, so I won't really be using Albert Bandura's social learning theory much or cooperative learning. Also, because it's just one lesson, I won't really be able to use intermittent reinforcement or see if there's any extinction over time. I also won't be using a norm or criterion reference test just because of the nature of the lesson. However, I will try to meet the basic guidelines of Jerome Bruner's learning theory and do my best to help Mariah succeed and grasp all of the concepts and information. So before I talk about the lesson itself and what it'll entail, I'm going to be giving some special consideration to my student. So Mariah seems to have really low trait anxiety, and she seems very confident in herself and her abilities with eye plasticity and ability to learn. I don't feel like I'll need to use any hot cognition because this is something that she's already expressed an interest in learning, and I don't want hot cognition to be more distracting than helpful. According to Piaget's cognitive stages, she should be able to handle abstract concepts and reason through her choices, so this lesson shouldn't be too hard cognitively. I'm also going to take into account Mariah's individual physical state. She's just gotten back from girls' camp recently, and so she's probably still kind of tired, and she's had a lot of lessons right before I get to teach her. And I'm pretty sure that right before I teach her, she'll just have finished a lesson on meditation, and it'll be in the same space that I'll be teaching her in. So she's going to have fairly low state anxiety, I feel like. And I'm actually going to change that to facilitating anxiety or even debilitating anxiety, because I'm teaching her audition tips, and debilitating anxiety is very common in audition situations. So I'll give her the circumstances that she's waiting for an audition, and she'll be given a part to read. So I'll have her wait outside for about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to kind of rush her into a prototypical audition situation. So I'll have the defining features of an audition with someone judging her and a space to act in, but I'll add in correlational features that she'll kind of have to accommodate for in this new type of setup. I'll be in the acting studio, so there isn't really a stage per se, but there is an acting space, and she'll be used to a stage, so she won't really be used to that intimate space. But I want her to be prepared for any kind of audition situation that she gets thrown into, and I don't want her to have misconceptions that will hinder her. I don't want her to maintain an undergeneralization of what a stage is, that it has to be a hard platform that's above the audience. And the physical arrangement of the space itself will probably throw her off a little bit because I'll have the judges much closer to her than they typically would be. But with auditions, you just don't really know what to expect, so I want her to have just a broader view of what auditions are in general. I'm going to be cueing her where to go and that we're in a little bit of a hurry, raising her anxiety even further. But I'll keep a fairly close proximity to her so that she feels more secure and that she can look to me because we met and she knows me, and I feel like she'll be a little bit comforted by my presence there, especially because I'm a female and closer-ish to her age. So her first audition experience here, I'm going to have her read a part that she probably won't be that familiar with and probably can't relate to the character that much. So this will probably be a negative example of a good audition, and I'll also try to record it so that later we can compare it to her final audition, which I'll have at the end of the lesson. This will be, in general, my pre-assessment and help me cater my lesson according to Vygotsky's idea of the zone of proximal development. So I'll be able to see how much help she needs and how much help she doesn't need. After she auditions, I'm a little worried that this might lower her self-esteem and maybe even her self-concept. So I'll have us all clap for her and kind of reward her in a behaviorist way with praise, and then I'll have my directors tell her everything she did right. Then I'll come and sit near her at kind of an angle so that she can see my face, and I'll start to develop an atmosphere where she feels safe and where her needs, which are based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, can start to be fulfilled so that she'll feel safe, her self-esteem will be intact, and she can continue to grow and try to realize her full potential as an actor. Then, when she's feeling a little bit more comfortable, I'll ask her what she feels like went wrong and I'll see how she attributes the failure, either externally or internally. I'm going to try to combat learned helplessness, and I'm going to ask her to see what she thinks might have helped her audition, and help her kind of self-regulate and open the door to discovery learning. If she needs some more scaffolding, I'll have her choose between either going over how to tackle new scripts first, or tips for calming her nerves. I'll cover both of them, but this might help me know which to spend the most time on and which she'd be most interested in. I'm a big fan of transparent teaching, so I'm going to tell her the order we're going to address the issues and why we're going in that order through information language. So first we'll talk about the scripts, and then we'll do some exercises to help with nerves and help her avoid that rushed feeling that she should have had that first time through. And then at the end, we're going to do another mock audition for our post-assessment, and I'll let her know that so that she's prepared, in a sense. Now, with Mariah, I know that she has struggled with not really receiving the part that she thinks would be best for her. Like, for example, you're saying something about how she didn't get the part of an 11-year-old girl when she was an 11-year-old. And this makes complete sense when we examine Erikson's psychosocial stages, and according to that, she's starting at the stage of identity versus role confusion. So I'm going to try to help her out and help her define who she is and to be happy with what she finds. It'll also help her develop her interpersonal intelligence from Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. So I will ask her, essentially, who is Mariah? Probing her frontal lobe, and I'm going to have her write that down and tell me a little bit about what she wrote. I'll also ask my directors that she performed in front of what their first impressions of her were, and explain to her that while other people's opinions shouldn't affect how we see ourselves, they can help give us a new perspective and ideas on how to improve. So she'll write down what the director said as well. And I'll explain that these characteristics are all a part of her, and she can carry them through her characters as well, and she should always be able to find something in common with whoever she's playing. So then we'll put on our green hats from Edward de Bono's 6 Thinking Hats and brainstorm what roles she might do well in. Then we'll put on our black hats and think of why some of those roles might not be the best after all. Then I want to throw in a moral dilemma, one that I still struggle with myself. I'll ask Mariah if she thinks that there are some things that are okay to do when you're a character, but not in real life. For example, if your character swears, is it okay for you to swear in your lines? If your character is immodest, is it okay if your costume is immodest? I'll ask her to explain her answer, and later I'll be using Kohlberg's stages of moral development and decide where she is, and I can also use Carol Gilligan's ideas to see if her self-concept might have affected her answer. I might even prompt her a little further by saying, would your answer stay the same if you knew that your parents wouldn't be there and no one would be judging you for whatever you decided? So after all of this serious discussion and everything, I think I'm going to have her get a drink and maybe do a couple of jumping jacks just so that she stays engaged and she keeps her nerve cells firing and talking to each other. So after we take a little break, I'll give her a new monologue and provide some scaffolding. I'll explain that whenever you get a new piece, you have 2 important things to decide. What does this person want, and how is she going to get it? We'll go through the piece together and discuss these two questions. And I'll help her assimilate the terms objective, which is what the person wants, and tactics, how they get it, and have her assimilate that into her schema. I'm going to rely on her experience as an actress and her intuition within her hippocampus and amygdala to help her with this activity. And though I think it will be challenging, I think she'll still be able to succeed with my help. And I'll give her one more piece for her to practice with and make sure that she knows what she's doing and she feels comfortable with that process, so that in the future she'll be able to get a new piece and know what to do with it. Master learning is my goal with this because I don't want her to have a failure to retrieve, especially if her physical climate changes and adds anxiety to her. I want her to leave this with a higher self-efficacy when she auditions, and I'm trying to give her tools for success. She seems to be very intrinsically motivated in general, but the idea that these tips might also help give her better roles and acting experiences provides an added extrinsic motivation. Next, we're going to move on to combat anxiety in an audition situation. I don't think she has a personal fable that she'll do really well and doesn't need to prepare, but instead I think she might have doubts that she will fail, which could result in debilitating anxiety. So I'm going to talk to her briefly about her imaginary audience. I'm going to ask her what she thinks the directors are thinking when they hear her audition. And this will trigger her mirror neurons and allow her to empathize with her directors in a way I don't think she has before. She might have a personal theory about what directors care about or not, and I want to clear that up right away. I'll reassure her that they honestly want everyone to succeed. They don't want to sit through bad or boring auditions. They want people to do their best, and they want to find their next star. They want the best person and the best actor to get the best role, whoever that is. So we focused on the cognitive domain with analyzing the scripts and motivations, and the affective domain when we talked about her self-concept and her concept of others and characters. But now we're going to move on to the psychomotor domain to really engage her cerebrum, cerebellum, and specifically her motor cortex. Instead of hard physical tasks, I'm going to teach her how to control and calm her own body. I'll ask her some of what she's learned in her last lesson on meditation, and make sure that her short-term memory from her last lesson was transferred into long-term, and hasn't decayed in the short time she's been with me. Then I'll transfer what she learned in meditating and apply it into an audition situation. I'll say that before your audition, you often just have to wait your turn, and even though her peers may be talking or goofing around, which might be contagious behavior, she should use the time as she waits to her advantage, and she can do a shorter, more subtle version of meditation before her audition. Keeping the simplified memory system in mind, I want to be sure that she doesn't have a failure to store, so I'll add a mnemonic device to help her remember the process. It's called breathe, drop, and roll, just like the steps when you're on fire are stop, drop, and roll. The link to fire and panic might help her so that whenever she is feeling panicked and like she's on fire, she can remember just breathe, drop, and roll. This will involve teaching her how to breathe deeply. I'll have her just focus on like one nostril at a time so that we can really focus her breath and calm her heart rate. And as she does this, I'll ask her to visualize her audition and it going exceptionally well and visualize her success. Then I'll have her drop and touch her toes, which she can do either sitting or standing, and then slowly roll up and around. And I'll be demonstrating each task before she does it so that she won't get confused by the way I explain things. I'm just going to keep it short and simple so that she won't worry about remembering a lot of things, and primarily I'm going to be using control language, and hopefully she won't be too overwhelmed by entering too much into her sensory register. Then we'll start the post-assessment. And because I'm more constructivist, this is where I'll base both her and my success. This will primarily be the application part of Bloom's taxonomy, and afterward we might add on some analysis. This will also give me the chance to make sure that there wasn't any interference with what she's been taught, and I can clear up any confusions. I'll give her the same circumstances that I did in the beginning, that she's waiting for an audition and she'll be given a part to read. If she needs a little bit more scaffolding, I'll okay, what do you do first as you wait? Now what are you going to do? And I'll give her some scaffolding, but I mostly want her to take charge of the situation. Then she'll enter and add the stimulus of an audience to reinforce what she's just learned, and it's more of a classical conditioning. I'll give her one more new piece to read and have her make some quick choices and then perform it so I can see how she responds to the stimulus this time. I'll record her performance to give her a positive instance of a good audition afterward. And at the end, we'll clap again and ask her how she felt about her audition this time. Hopefully it'll have a lot less stress and she'll feel better about what she's learned. And if there's time, I'll have her watch the 2 auditions that she gave side by side and see if she can see the difference for herself. Now, in the lesson, I didn't really cover the 3 kinds of research, with descriptive, correlational, and experimental, because I didn't think they were very relevant to this specific lesson. And I also didn't feel like she'd have many overgeneralizations, just because she is so familiar with acting, and she seems to be more prone to undergeneralizations, because she might think that her acting experience is the most accurate and that there aren't other kinds of acting experiences. So I want to be sure to address a lot of those. Overall, I'll just try to listen and try to adapt as I need to in my lesson, and mostly be very communicative and, again, very transparent in my teaching so that she sees how this can help her. And that'll be the end of my lesson. Thank you.